Hello, Sensei. Hello, ministers. Sorry that I was not able to be live in the class today, but I am doing my presentation via this video. Um, the first thing on the Dharma glimpse, um, you know, demons or demonology, whatever you call it, want to call it, has existed in religion for as long as time as religion has existed. Um, and some people think that that's the reason why religion exists. But in Buddhism, there's talk of demons and energies and these different beings and deities. But there's two sides to that. One of them is that they're a representation of our own anger, greed, jealousy, all of those negative feelings. Um, and then there's also beings that are, you know, trapped in these awful states of negativity. But in Buddhism, I think a big difference is that, unlike other, you know, people that cast them out or they're bad, or we see them as beings that are in suffering, and they deserve love and compassion from us, and the desire to wish them well. And there's so many stories of Buddhist lamas and monks that had encounters with these deities, and one of the one that always comes to mind was one where there was so many demons there in a cave, and he was able to get all of them out with different chants and meditations, and there was one that he could not and would not leave. It would not stop disturbing him. And finally, to that one, he just bowed and wished them love and compassion, and you know, just sadness for his misfortune. And upon doing this, the demon evaporated and vanished. And I think that this points out to a couple of things. So for people that don't want to take it literal, that's okay. I think it points out to get rid of all the stuff that we have in our head, all the bad things that we have in our head, and at the end of the day, the only true thing that's going to really change anything is our focus on love and compassion, and the desire to not hurt anyone, and actually to not cause anybody pain. So I leave you that glimpse, and then jumping right into into going over the reading, jumping onto Scott-san. He writes some of the stuff that he learned was that those who choose to walk the Buddhist path are better for it. They live a better life. And then one big thing that I think we've learned throughout the course of this journey that we've been on to become ministers was that, and Reverend Kuwuse points this out over and over and over again, and that's that we do not need to become monks, but we need to become monks spiritually. We need to be an example. And I think, in a lot of ways, this is tougher. It's, for some people it's tough to get away from their families and go on this retreat, but, or to go into a monastery, but there's people that are there supporting you. And I think when you decide to do it like we're doing it, like lay ministers, where you stay amongst the population, you stay amongst everybody, the good, the bad, the ugly, and choose to be that example and to bring compassion into those people's life. I think a lot of times it's harder because we do have more distractions. But one thing that Tony-san was saying that Scott-san was saying that he didn't really feel that he got anything big out of it, and it's funny because he wrote something that was really big for me, and that was the story of Devadatta who betrayed the Buddha, and in some readings that I did, they said he was actually the Buddha's cousin. And one of the things that he said was, that he had a role to play, and some of the actions that he took helped bring about the Dharma. Some of the actions that he took actually help create the path and where it needed to be. And I think this is very important. A lot of times we think of certain people and we're like, why are they here? Or why is this people here? Or why are they? And everybody has a part to play. And it actually reminded me of Lord of the Rings. For those of you that are nerdy like we are, that like to see that kind of stuff, there's a scene where one of the hobbits was angry with Gollum, and this awful person, and he wanted him dead, and he didn't know why his uncle hadn't killed him when he had the chance. And the wizard that was leading him stopped him and said, "Hey, well, hang on a minute, hang on. Everybody has a part to play," and it's so true. Moving on to Tony-san, and I guess that goes back to the interconnectedness that we always talk about. Everybody has a part to play. Moving on to Tony-san, when he talks about the Buddha's wife and even his son, and just how loyal they were to him, and even after he had gone, to discover all these great things for the whole world, she became a nun, and his son became a monk, and they followed him and they joined him. And this shows me two things. One of them it shows me is the Buddha's compassion, of sacrificing himself and even his family to an extent of, going out to find a way to end suffering. And, how many of us could have done that? How many of us could have really left? I mean, he was basically in a pleasure palace, and I don't know, I think it's a great sacrifice and great love. The second thing that it shows me is also, once again, is the power of example. Because when I've read the story of the Buddha so many times, it talks about how when people met him after he reached his enlightenment, it was like they thought he was a god, they thought he was an angel, they thought he was something else. And once again, it shows you the power of example. And he went to his family and to his friends and to the people he knew, and he shared it with them. And some were receptive, some were not. Going on to Pia-san, she writes about the interconnectedness and impermanence, and how sometimes impermanence can be cold or seem cold, and I think that it's very important that we bring love and compassion to both, in when we think about interconnectedness and when we think about impermanence, because without the love and compassion piece to it, the impermanence can become nihilism, and that's not what it is. It's not what it is at all. We're part of nature, and we die. And why do we die? We die so that other people can live. It's and that's just the way of nature. It's not a bad thing, and I guess we could make it into a bad thing, but that's not what it is. In Buddhism, we don't see things as necessarily bad or good, evil, righteous. Kind of that's the other group of people. We don't do that, because once again, we know that we're interconnected, and we know that everyone has a part to play, and we know that and going back to the demonologies, in Buddhism, we believe that all beings can eventually become a Buddha, can eventually become enlightened, and that includes animals, ghosts, demons, whatever. So just the importance of remembering that. And then Jason-san, and I really always love Jason-san's always thinking out of the box, and I love it. And the things that he brings up and the things that he chooses to talk about. And one of them was, women not being allowed to join the Sangha initially. And one thing here that's really important to remember is that we can't judge those people by the laws we have today, by the ideology and philosophy that we have today, because it simply wasn't that way back then. They didn't have the laws that we have now. Back then a lot of women, could have been put in a situation of danger, could have been, hurt, and it's taken a while for, people to reach that kind of enlightenment, especially when it comes to gender. And it's a sad thing, and it's a hurtful thing. And I think that the Buddha was up against some tough stuff. He's bringing this enlightenment, this, desire of love and acceptance for everybody, and, to a world that some of them weren't ready for that. I think society, maybe even at large. Fortunately, a lot of people were. And it's funny that he brought that up, because just a couple of days ago I did an empowerment, and it was for those that are familiar with Tibetan Buddhism, it was Red Tara empowerment, and his writing, and I just did this 2 days ago, and he wrote that Tara was the first feminist, and I think that after I did the empowerment, it made me realize that you know just how beautiful and powerful the female energy is, and I think slowly but surely that's coming out, and there were some ancient cultures too that had women leaders, and we can think of them, and you know just these beautiful women that were able to be mothers, and to really lead people in a right way. And one of the things that was pointed out was just the example that we have to be now, and the people that we are now. I mean, we've been in this journey for over a year now, and I think that we've grown together, and we've learned a lot. And a lot of times, maybe when you guys write something, or you feel like, well, this isn't significant to me at all, but I'm going to write something. What you write is going to be significant to somebody else. Just like a lot of times when I read your stuff here, it's very significant to me, and it hits home with me. And it's funny because you might look at it and be like, well, that really didn't mean anything to me, or that really didn't, I didn't feel moved this week. And it was just a great book, and I had the opportunity. I went to pick up a copy of the book at. I had just gotten back to LA because I was training for my new job as a chef, and so I was out in Texas and in New Orleans, and it was a lot of fun. But when I got back to LA, I went to look for this book, and I found out that the temple is here. Nikkyo Niwano's temple is here, and they have the book there for $7. So I got it for my Dharma sister and sent it out, and I got to go into the temple, or to the church actually is what they call it, and just a beautiful, beautiful setup, and I really loved it. And I would not have had the opportunity to go into that beautiful church had it not been for this class and for reading this beautiful book. And that's all that I have. Thank you so much. Until the next time.